It is land, but it seems I have some problems. Unfortunately, we must leave, please.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vous êtes prêts?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today's press briefing will be on the attacks against the UN system, special procedures, and the Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the occupied Palestinian territories. We will have 5 special procedures experts briefing today, so let me introduce them all very quickly and we can then get started. On the podium today we have Mr. Nicolas Levrat, the Special Rapporteur on Minority Issues, and Mr. Richard Bennett, next to him, the Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Afghanistan. Speaking to you remotely today will be Mr. George Katrougalos, independent expert on the promotion of a democratic and equitable international order, Ms. Fernanda Hopenhaym, member of the Working Group on Business and Human Rights, and Ms. Francesca Albanese, Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the occupied Palestinian territories. Each of the speakers today will have brief opening remarks, after which we will open the floor for questions. We'll begin with opening remarks by the Special Rapporteur on Minority Issues. Mr. Levrat, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here. The media officer tells me that it is unusual to have 5 speakers for one press conference. Okay, true. But we are 5 of us, but with only one message. This is not only one special rapporteur on one specific issue that is at stake today. It is the whole UN human rights architecture that is under attack. This UN human rights architecture is built on 9 major human rights treaties, each monitored by a treaty body. It is also built on the Human Rights Council Universal Periodical Review, and for all those aspects that are not covered by these 2 mechanisms, it is built on special procedures, that is, some 80 independent experts, each directly mandated by the Human Rights Council. That makes us, Human Rights Council mandate holders, independent. Then give us the possibility to raise our voices when need arises, like today. This also makes us very fragile. We do not work for a government or an institution, but for the cause of human rights. That probably makes us the keystones of this UN human rights architecture. But for a keystone to hold its place, it needs strong pillars below. The UN as an institution on the one side, member states championing human rights and respect for international law on the other. But under the bold and frontal attacks led by one state that was created following UN decisions, Israel, and one which created the UN, the USA, we do not feel that the pillars are very strong. It is not the first time that mandate holders come under attack. In the 80s and 90s, 2 cases were brought by the UN General Assembly to the International Court of Justice for advisory opinion. In both cases, the immediate support from the UN to the attack special rapporteurs is very clearly documented. We do not see it today. And if the UN itself is not very courageous, we also see cracks appearing in the other pillar. This past week, we've heard some states that present themselves as champions of human rights calling from one of us, Francesca Albanese, to resign from her mandate. Are those states, European states, accomplices to the destruction project led by the USA and Israel, or are they just sleepwalking a changing world order they don't understand? It is not only one of us, thus all of us special procedures mandate holders, who is under attack. It is the whole fragile edifice for the protection of human rights and respect of human dignity that is being put at risk by these cowardly and irresponsible behaviors. We call today all those individual civil society organizations, state, international civil servants of all ranks to raise their voices and defend the very substance of human rights, as we are doing here and now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levrat. Our next speaker will be joining us remotely, Mr. George Katrougalos. You have the floor.
Many thanks for that. The Secretary General recently stated that 2026 is already shaped to be a year of crisis and chaos. This assessment is regrettably accurate. Numerous crises and protracted conflicts continue to rage across the world, from Sudan to Ukraine. Still, the new American administration, through the Secretary of State, has already declared officially that, quote, the international order is not just obsolete, it's now a weapon being used against us. President Trump has already bombed 7 countries. He bought an illegal naval blockade on Cuba and Venezuela, invaded the latter, and threatens to do the same with Iran. Yet, the ground zero for international legality remains Gaza. We have witnessed an ongoing genocide before the eyes of the entire world, with tens of thousands of civilian deaths, the vast majority of them women and children. This tragedy has been accompanied by a full-fledged attack against the United Nations itself. The Secretary General, in a historically unprecedented way, has been declared persona non grata by Israel. UNRWA has been repeatedly targeted, even physically, and the Israeli Prime Minister has referred to the United Nations as a house of darkness and a swamp of anti-Semitism. And instead of unequivocally condemning these attacks on international legality, some European foreign ministers choose to shoot the messenger, rather than defending Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese on the face of unlawful American sanctions, which have now been extended to a former EU commissioner. They called for her resignation. And on what grounds? An evidently doctored video circulated by a notorious gongo that has previously targeted numerous special procedures mandate holders. The coordinating committee of the special procedures, speaking for all of us, has rightly condemned this disgraceful campaign. It is encouraging, both for the truth and for the integrity of the United Nations system, that several European foreign ministers have since retracted their attacks against Francesca Albanese. But now it is the time to defend the United Nations against new and old threats. We have now a clear effort to sideline the United Nations by the establishment of the so-called Board of Peace, which clearly goes beyond the related decision of the Security Council. Even an agency of the United Nations, the World Bank, participated in its first session and promised its economic support. It is clear what are our obligations now. Defend the United Nations Charter, oppose all moves against it, condemn the blockade against Cuba and Venezuela, prevent a new war in Iran, defend the right of self-determination of the Palestinians. This is the task of our generation, to not let replace the right by might. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Katrougalos. We will now hear from the working group member from the Working Group on Business and Human Rights, Ms. Fernanda Hopenhaym. Ms. Hopenhaym, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone in Geneva and online. And thank you for this opportunity to share some thoughts. As my colleagues have already mentioned, we come here today as independent human rights mandate holders, and together we form one of the pillars of the human rights systems at the UN. We remain a key source of data and analysis for member states and all other stakeholders. We do this, by the way, unpaid job because we believe in human rights and in an international system that protects the persons and the planet. Now, more than ever, the human rights system is desperately needed. Treaty bodies and special procedures together jointly work to guarantee human rights are respected for all. Flagrant violations of the UN Charter and international law are a threat to us all. Defunding the UN as a whole and the human rights systems in particular has put us in a very difficult position to fulfill our important tasks. Attacks to the special procedures, in particular, have increased in the last months. Refusal to collaborate, smear campaigns and sanctions, as the ones imposed on our fellow mandate holder, Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, are not only illegal, but dangerous and highly concerning. They also aim to distract us from the essential work that we need to be doing. As special procedures mandate holders, we stand together with Francesca and together as part of this very complex, yet utterly important system, collectively built through 8 decades of efforts. We call on states to fulfill their human rights obligations under international law and to refrain from attacking the UN in general and independent experts in particular. And we also call on private actors, including businesses, investors, and other organizations to fulfill the responsibility to respect human rights, which includes, of course, content moderation when hate speeches are disseminated, which includes providing financial services when illegal sanctions are administered or imposed, and not to be complicit in human rights violations. And of course, willingly cooperate with special procedures. We remain at your disposal for discussion, and I thank you all very much for being here today.
Thank you so much. We'll now hear from the Special Rapporteur on Afghanistan. Mr. Bennett, you have the floor.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks especially to members of the press for coming. I'm here in solidarity with my colleagues and to stand up for the international human rights system and special procedures in particular. States established the special procedures system in order to receive independent and impartial information and advice on thematic and country-specific human rights violations, putting victims and survivors first. My own mandate on Afghanistan specifically requires me to be survivor-centered, and I continue to appreciate the support of Council members for that. And it's what I consider should be our starting point, a survivor and victim-centered frame of reference. At times, states and others may not agree with reports and statements by special procedures mandate holders. In fact, they may strongly disagree and are fully entitled to express those disagreements forcefully. However, deliberately misrepresenting the statements or views of mandate holders and attacking them personally is beyond the pale. International sanctions are for human rights violators and criminals, not for human rights defenders. The sanctions and other attacks against my colleague Francesca Albanese, including calls for her resignation, must stop now. If there are complaints, by all means make them through the established channels that the Human Rights Council has approved. I remind you, as my colleague Fernanda has mentioned, the UN's independent experts serve without pay. There are guardrails to address concerning behaviours or statements. and a council-approved code of conduct and coordinating committee that includes a disciplinary function if needed. I'm sure we all want high-quality, independent experts in the UN system, and I'm concerned that false information and illegitimate attacks, including but not only on Ms. Albanese, are likely to discourage the best candidates for applying for what is a demanding and unpaid responsibility. The system will be undermined and eroded. Not only the special procedure system, but the entire human rights architecture will suffer. So I call for an immediate return to acceptable behavior where fair criticism does not descend into personalized vendettas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. And finally, we will hear from the Special Rapporteur on the Occupied Palestinian Territories, Ms. Francesca Albanese, who is online. Ms. Albanese, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you all in Geneva and connected remotely. For me, this is a very important press briefing, and thank you, OHCHR colleagues and fellow special rapporteurs, independent experts, for being present. To those who are following us, silence is not an option, neither for me nor for my colleagues. And raising our voice is an integral part of our mandate as UN expert. I am currently in Jordan. In principle, I should be in Palestine, in the occupied Palestinian territory, but because of the restrictions and the obstacles that Israel, as an unlawful occupier, imposes on me and others, I'm just grateful to the Jordanian government and the people I've met these days for the support they extended to my mandate. I want to start by saying, before delving into the sanctions, that it's not easy for me to be with you today after an intense and painful week spent speaking with survivors of torture, victims and their lawyers in preparation for my forthcoming report to the Human Rights Council. The testimonies I've collected have been harrowing, and I look forward to presenting my findings to you next month, because the harm inflicted upon the Palestinian people evokes some of the darkest chapters associated with authoritarian rule belonging to we would have hoped, to the past century. I remain struck by the limited outrage expressed by much of the international community. I've welcomed and I continue to welcome the return of Israeli hostages to their families. But we must also confront the situation of Palestinian detainees. There are nearly 10,000 today in Israeli jails and trapped in the Israeli network web. They are hostages of an unlawful occupation held in brutal conditions. And I will address this in greater detail when I'm in Geneva. However, the overall situation in the occupied Palestinian territory is catastrophic. In Gaza, where families survive in flooded tents while people continue to die from gunfire, cold, hunger, and preventable diseases, and someone has the audacity of calling it ceasefire. And meanwhile, in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, conditions continue to deteriorate. Policies aimed at consolidating an unlawful annexation that was announced by this coalition government in February 2023, and have raised the alarm multiple times, including with the Secretary General. These policies are aimed at further displacing the Palestinians. Permanent forced displacement, permanent population change, population shift. This is also what the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, has been denouncing recently. So in the middle of all this, I can tell you how toxic and personally damaging for me and for my family this past days, weeks and months have been. The smears, the sanctions, the continuous attacks from all over, from those very states who should use that energy and stamina to go after those who are accused by the highest court in the world of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. So here I wish to express really my heartfelt gratitude to the colleagues within the UN system. First and foremost, special rapporteurs, independent experts, and working groups who have been with me steadily from the very beginning, the coordinating committee of special procedures and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, as well as member states like the members of the OIC in particular, who have recently strongly and swiftly defended my mandate from the attacks emanating from some European countries. The measures, I want to refer to the sanctions now. The sanctions against me form part of a broader strategy associated with the current US administration, which is aiming at weakening international accountability mechanisms and more broadly, as has been said already, the rule of law system that we have built over the past 8 years, replacing it with a revived, militarized and financially empowered form of neo-colonial domination. And it's particularly concerning the targeting of those who seek accountability, the judges and prosecutors of the International Criminal Court, myself as a UN mandate holders, and Palestinian civil society organizations. Because look at what keeps us together. The three of us are doing nothing more, nothing else than seeking accountability for victims. Securing the revocations of the sanctions against me, against the ICC judges and prosecutors, and against 4 Palestinian NGOs, and of the executive and the reconsideration of the executive order from which they emanate is not a personal matter. It is a shared interest for all who believe in international law, accountability, and the world governed by rules and not by force or by bullying. So faced with this rupture, we must name it clearly and move beyond it toward what I call more and more a decolonized multilateralism, grounded in equality, in accountability, and in the universal application of international law. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Albanese. The experts will now ask questions. Please state your name and organization before asking a question. And since we have several speakers, we'll be grateful if you could indicate to which expert your question is directed. Thank you. Jeremy.
Thank you so much. Jeremy Lange for the French Public Radio. I've got 2 questions. I would ask them in English, and if you may answer for those who may in French, I'd be happy to. But it's for all of you. First, on the declaration by the minister of, not the ministry, but the French ambassador earlier this week at the Human Rights Council, I'd like to know what were your reaction when you listened to the ambassador saying something about you, Ms. Albanese, but not this time asking for your resignation. So your first reaction when you heard that, and a more broader question for you, all of you, considering this context for special procedures holders, do you consider that today it is easier for you to work in countries like, for instance, Syria, than working in environment like the US and European countries?
Ms. Albanese, will you take the question first?
Yes, actually, I do not have much to say because, I heard about the comments of the French ambassador. It seems that the French diplomacy has changed its mind. Would it have been nice if they added also a word of apology, considering the smear campaign that they've been part to? But also, let me take this opportunity to make a comment about the sources that Italian, French, and German diplomacy has relied upon. It's past the time that we hold accountable the organizations that from within the UN system, profiting of their ECOSOC status, fabricate defamations against me, against us, against any rapporteur, any special rapporteur, or any independent expert, the Office of the High Commissioner, the Commission of Inquiry, anyone who dares scrutinizing Israel, accusing us of anti-Semitism, accusing us of supporting terrorism. These actors need to be held accountable, because clearly they have provided false information that the French diplomats and others, or the French minister and others, have relied upon, which is already disconcerting. But however, the question is that here it is to be clear once and for all that the human rights system and the human rights movement that globally is forming for justice in Palestine has nothing to do with what Israel is and professes as a religion. Is about what Israel does as a state and its continuous violations of international law, including international criminal law.
Thank you. Do any of the other experts want to weigh in on Jeremy's questions? Did you have a follow-up, Jeremy?
No, if I may, Ms. Albanese, if you could just answer en français pour cette partie-là, juste voilà votre réaction en français, juste en quelques mots.
Oui, non, vous avez raison, vous l'aviez demandé. Non, finalement, je pense, j'étais occupée quand la session du Conseil a eu lieu, mais j'ai entendu, j'ai lu ce que Monsieur l'ambassadeur de la France a dit au sein du Conseil, et je dis que je prends note du fait que la diplomatie française a changé d'avis finalement. Je prends note et j'aurais attendu aussi un mot de clarification et d'excuse parce qu'ils m'ont insulté de façon virulente, inacceptable. Et de toutes les façons, je pense que c'est le moment d'ouvrir la discussion sur les organisations qui fabriquent des fausses informations, des accusations avec tout le monde qui essaye d'avancer le dossier de la justice en Palestine. Ça ne veut pas dire critiquer Israël pour ce qu'il est. Israël peut professer toutes les religions qu'il veut. Le problème, c'est pas avec ce qu'Israël est, mais avec ce qu'Israël fait, c'est-à-dire avec la violation épatante de droit international qu'il commet. Et voilà, il faut finalement adresser ces organisations qui ont fait de la diffamation leur profession contre moi, contre les autres relateurs spéciaux, contre la commission d'enquête, le commissaire aux droits humains et tout. C'est le moment parce que ces gens-là sont considérés à peu près comme des clones à Genève. Personne les considère. On dit on leur donne pas de l'oxygène, mais finalement ils constituent une source d'information au niveau de chaque capitale européenne et ailleurs. Voilà, merci.
Thank you, Ms. Albanese. Mr. Levrat will also weigh in on that question, Jeremy.
Merci pour vos questions. Très brièvement, peut-être sur la deuxième question, à savoir est-ce qu'aujourd'hui il est plus facile de travailler en Syrie qu'aux États-Unis d'Amérique pour des rapporteurs spéciaux? La réponse est malheureusement non. C'est difficile de travailler partout. Il y a eu une dégradation terrible des conditions d'accès au territoire, que ce soit pour des raisons juridiques ou pour des raisons pratiques de sécurité. Et quand je fais référence à des enjeux de sécurité, je ne parle pas que de la Syrie. Certains d'entre nous craignent pour leur propre sécurité dans le territoire d'États qui ne semblent pas offrir les garanties de nous laisser mener notre mandat jusqu'au point de découvrir les faits. Et le deuxième point, c'est effectivement, et ça se réfère aussi à ce dont a parlé Francesca Albanese, il est de plus en plus difficile de faire la part des choses. Il y a des manipulations de l'information, alors c'est pas nouveau, il y a toujours eu des tentatives, voire des réussites dans la manipulation de l'information, mais aujourd'hui, à cause des technologies qui se sont développées, il devient très difficile, vous-même qui travaillez dans les médias devez le savoir, il devient parfois très difficile de démêler le vrai du faux. Et évidemment, les paroles comptent. Il est clair qu'on ne peut que se réjouir qu'un ambassadeur dise moins que ce qui a été dit précédemment par son ministre, mais comme l'a dit Francesca Albanese, peut-être c'est pas suffisant. Merci.
Thank you. Ms. Hopenhaym also has an intervention.
Thank you. Just to add to the second question, par rapport à la deuxième question, juste pour ajouter que on doit travailler avec tous les États et on va essayer de travailler avec tous les États et aussi souligner quand il y a des violations de droits humains, l'endroit où les violations ont lieu. Alors, on va essayer de travailler aux États-Unis, dans la Syrie ou partout le monde. J'espère que les États vraiment réfléchissent et ont beaucoup plus d'ouverture pour travailler avec nous, avec le processus spécial. Merci.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the experts online? I don't see any hands online. Do any of the experts want to say anything further? Anybody online? Ms. Albanese? No. Okay, if there are sorry, please go ahead.
No, it's very interesting to be in a press conference with journalists who do not ask questions. Another interesting sign of the time we are in. It's okay. Thank you for those who are there.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, we will then close this press conference. If anybody would like the opening remarks by any of the experts, please let us know and we can make those available. Thank you all for joining us. Have a good afternoon.